This call is now being recorded.
Welcome to Kidmissing Radio. I am your host, Angelina Wilson, and I am here with Jeff Highsmith, the brother of Melissa Highsmith. Melissa was kidnapped by a woman calling herself Ruth Johnson on the 23rd of August, 1971, in Fort Worth, Texas. And someone was supposed to be a babysitter. Supposedly took care of other kids. Well, she picked Melissa up along with a little dress and a little pair of shoes and never returned her. 2 days ago was the 50th anniversary. What can you tell us? Thank you for joining us, by the way. What can you tell us about, I know you're much younger, but what can you tell us about what you've been told about that day?
Yep, sure. So I have three other sisters. They're all older. Melissa was born in 1969, and so all my other three sisters and myself, we always grew up knowing about our sister's case and about how she was taken. So Becky, the oldest sister of the three, is born in 75, and then 76, and then 78, and I was born in 1980. And so our whole life my parents didn't talk about it much, just here and there, but we've always known, and it's been on, public information. So with the computer age, we were able to go online and kind of see the stories that were out there. And I've been very interested in my whole life. You just kind of move on after so long. There's, after the decades roll, and there's really nothing you can do about it. You just kind of move on with your life. And I've never been able to just let it go. I've just always, kind of been an itch that I had to scratch. I just could never get past it. And so I've always researched. I've always did everything I could within my means to try to find what happened. And there was a couple years, for the last 10 years, I just kind of let it go. And I said, look, I can't do nothing. I just got tired of fighting, tired of trying. And but what we've been told was my mother and father had split. They were separated. My father was in Illinois, and my mother was in East Fort Worth, and gotten an apartment with her roommate from high school. And so they were living together. My mom was working as a waitress at a restaurant downtown Fort Worth, and she put an ad in the newspaper, and also an ad in the apartment complex where she was at. She needed a babysitter, and so just 2 days later, somebody responded and called. And they called her while she was at work. And the person that called said it was Ruth Johnson, and that they wanted the job, and that they would be able to meet at her restaurant for an interview. Well, the lady never showed up, and called the next day. And the lady said, look, I'm sorry, I got into a car accident, but I really want the job. I have kids of my own at home, and we have a big playground with a pool, and I think your daughter would have, be really comfortable there. And my mom just kind of believed what this lady was selling. And she said, okay, well, Melissa's at home with my roommate. You can go pick her up from there. And so she called the roommate and said, hey, there's a lady that's going to come by and pick up Melissa. She's going to drop her back off at 4. And my mom never got a phone number or an address where Melissa would be at. And she said it was probably just her biggest regret, her biggest mistake that she's ever had in her whole life. She just was so naive and to thinking that, people wouldn't do something like that she could trust somebody. that was it. So for a long time, we always thought, us kids, we always thought the roommate was my mom's cousin, and it wasn't till 3 years ago that we really found out it was her friend from high school, and we tried to track her down. Me and my wife tried to locate her for 5 or 6 years, and we finally found her, and we sent her multiple emails. We sent her a letter to her home. We tried to call her phone number, and we just kept on getting no response at all until about a year ago. We finally got a hold of her, and she was able to meet with us. And what she had provided for us, the information she had provided for us, had never been known to the family. She gave us a lot of more information that had never been known. And and this is a recount of her story. Her name is Carol Key. Her response.
I read her post on the group.
Right. Okay. Right. Exactly. And so she explained a lot more than what we ever knew. And right around the same time that we did that meeting with Carol, the head breakfast with Carol, we did a podcast called Gone Cold, and this guy has a couple 100,000 followers, and we didn't think anything of it. He just wanted to hear our story, and so we told him a story that we had and about Melissa, all the facts that we did know. And it was probably about 2 weeks later we got a phone call from Vincent Strange, the guy that does the podcast. He said, "Look," he said, "there's this lady that wants to talk to you. She thinks that her cousin is your sister." And so we're like, "Wow, that's really interesting." Okay. And so we met with the cousin. We were just like, we've kind of learned, there's been 2 other ladies in the past that came forward and said they were our sister, and DNA said no. So we're like, we don't get our hopes up. We're like, okay, we'll meet with you. That's fine. So we met with this lady. Her name is Sandra. She was the cousin of this lady that said she's my sister. And she said her whole life she lived with her blood aunt and her aunt's husband, which would be her uncle by marriage. And for a couple, from the time she was like 9 years old until she was about 15, she lived with her aunt and uncle. And she said there was a lot of strange and unique circumstances. One of those being, and she said that he lived at the same apartment complex as my mom did whenever Melissa was taken. And so that's what really got me interested and really said, okay, now I want to talk to you. Now I'm interested. And I'm not going to say the guy's name because he's still under, because we don't know what's going on, but I'm not going to say his name because I don't want to interfere with any investigation that might be happening. But,
I agree.
But so the more that we investigated this guy, the more we found a reason to dig deeper. For instance, this girl's uncle, as of today, owns about 60 properties throughout in the entire state of the state of Texas, and they're spread out all over the state of Texas.
Wow.
And they're not their properties aren't very valuable. They're not high in value. He owns dozens of cars that he pays yearly registration every year on it. It's odd, and he doesn't sell cars. He doesn't have a dealer license. That was odd. He's still alive and living in this area. He owns a business in this area. And so I contacted him on the phone, and I portrayed myself as somebody else just to get a verification that he did live at those apartment complexes. And so when I called him, I made a rookie mistake, and I used my own cell phone. I'm like, so I called him and I said, hey, this is Detective Sir. Yeah, I know. I should. I didn't. I don't know why. I didn't know why. I just wasn't thinking. And so I said, this is Detective So and So, and we're just following up a lead, and we need to confirm that you lived at this apartment at this time. And without hesitation, oh yeah, I lived there at that time. Yeah. I said, okay, that's all we need to know. I really appreciate your time. And it was probably maybe 5 minutes. Not even. It was at least 5 minutes. He called back, and he said, is Jeff Highsmith there? And I'm like, oh, no, he stepped out of the office. He's like, well, tell him I just remembered I never lived there. And I'm like, oh my God. Now, you just told me 5 minutes ago you were certain without hesitation. Oh, yeah, I definitely lived. Oh, I lived there. Okay. I just remembered I never lived there. I think you're lying. But okay. All right.
I think so.
Well, so a couple months go by, and it just bugged me. I knew he was lying. And I was talking to my wife about it, and I remember we were driving down the road. I think we were driving to a friend's house, and I was replaying the conversation to my wife. And I said, and it like a light bulb went off in my head, and I said, wait a second, baby, whoa. He called me Jeff Highsmith. She's like, well, that is your name. I'm like, no, you don't understand. I called him from my phone. She's like, well, yeah, your name is Jeff, and called him from your phone. I said, sweetie, the phone is still in your maiden name. It's still right. Yeah, it's still your maiden name's number. So if he would have seen the caller ID, he would have not seen Highsmith. He would have seen your maiden name. And my wife doesn't have a Facebook account, so it's not like he could have linked us together. And I'm like, oh my goodness. So,
well, that's odd, because usually when people call me from cell phones, it doesn't show the name unless the name is in my phone. It will just show the number.
Yeah, I've noticed in some phones, I don't have their number stored, and their name will pop up sometimes.
It will on the house phone, but not on my cell phone.
Yeah, I don't know.
Depends on what cell phone you have. I have an iPhone, so.
Okay. Yeah, we have an Android. I don't know. That really threw me off. And I said, wait a second. Hold on. And so now I said, okay, now I want to meet this lady. And now I want to meet this lady because all these red flags are going off. I'm like, okay, hold on. And so I met this lady. And I don't want to give her name out, but I met this lady.
No.
And she looked just like my mom. She had the hips and thighs, high cheekbones, the brown hair. Looked like her daughters looked like my sisters. Very similar. And so we were very intrigued. Like, wait a second. So we got to talk to her, and I convinced her to give us a DNA test, and she agreed to do a DNA with me. And I told her, I said, I think you're my sister. We didn't let her know because her cousin and her are not and on speaking terms, that we didn't let her know how we, came about that conclusion.
So is her cousin the child of the man you were talking about?
By marriage. Niece by marriage. The cousin is the niece by marriage of the guy I was talking about.
Okay.
Her aunt was married to this guy, so he's not blood related.
Oh, I thought she was their kid.
No, she just lived with them for a couple of years because
No, I'm talking about the lady that turned in the lead.
Yeah, no, she's a niece, and she lived with them because her mother was from what she's stating, was on drugs and was not able to take care of her. The lady, though, the lady that we thought was my sister knew that I was adopted and knew that her mom and dad were, according to her, were not taking care of her, and this guy had adopted her. And so everything lined up to be her. In fact, she even had a birthmark on the back of her neck.
Oh, my
like
God.
Melissa. So, I mean, like when she told me, and she didn't even know, and I said on the phone, and the phone was on speakerphone, and my wife was me and my wife were in the bedroom. I'm sitting on the bed, and I said, and this is the day before we're going to do a DNA test. And I said, my sister would have had a birthmark like a cherry size, the size of a cherry red birthmark on the back of her neck. She's like, well, no, I don't have that. And her daughter is like, yes, you do, Mom. And she lifted her hair and put it in the mirror, and she said, it's right. She's like, I never knew I had that. And so when she said that, I started crying because I thought I found my sister. I thought it was her. I'm like, everything, the hips, the thighs, it looks just like my sister's, my mom, and the birthmark, and everything was lining up. But DNA said no. DNA said no, was not a match, and I was pretty devastated at that point. In fact, that was last year. Yeah, that was last summer. I was. Yeah. But I think there was a reason why God brought her into our life. And so I said, okay, and we kind of just left it alone, and I really just wanted to give up with everything, trying to look for her, and then, and I just couldn't let the situation go with this guy. And so the more that I talked, before we did the DNA test, I talked to this lady 3 or 4 hours on the phone, and she told me all about her family. For instance, her sister, her adopted sister, was bought from a prostitute for $3,000 in a bar.
Oh my God!
And
that's just horrific.
It's horrific, and that's just part of their family. And this guy owned 2 bars when he was only 21 years old. And that's another big red flag, because nobody owns a bar that young.
No.
And he doesn't come from money. So I'm like, wait a second, hold on. So we think that this guy was a trafficker.
Very well could be.
It's possible. We don't know. I don't have any concrete proof. This is all speculation. This is all just shades of gray, just trying to put a piece puzzle together without any real pieces. Just all here and there. So, the more that I went back and we talked to the cousin, went back and talked to her, and we told her that that her cousin was not our sister, but we wanted to know more about her adopted uncle. And she's like, well, my sister was a little bit older than me and has a lot more to say and knew a lot more. And so we talked to her sister and her on the phone, and her sister talked about an adoption agency that he used to frequent, and that he had a contact there. Every time they drove past that, he would curse at him, and that he would be very, very angry. And she always thought that was odd. And she's like, well, they did business together. Yeah, they did business together, but, they're no longer, in. He did some type of business with that adoption agency. And this adoption agency, what they did, it's called the Edna Gladney House. And what they did was they housed mothers and pregnant women and they would house them and feed them and take care of them until they delivered their baby, and they would get compensation for their babies, and they would then take the babies and adopt them out to families. And
almost a Georgia Tan type situation, which is what I was going to ask you about.
Yes, ma'am. Yep. And then some other facts that came out that were really interesting. So this older sister of the cousin said that there was rumors that this man was bisexual and that he used to dress in drag at times, and that he before his aunt, he had been known to have a male partner, and we're like, okay, well, that doesn't mean a lot to us, except that the roommate of my mom said that when she remembered later, she thought that maybe the kidnapper was a person dressed in drag. The kidnapper needs to be
talked to by police.
Well, we're hoping. So the roommate, basically, when she described the kidnapper, she said, it still haunts me every day. She said, I've actually been in therapy for a long time because I feel so responsible that I was the last person that gave Melissa to the kidnapper. And she's like, I feel it's my fault. I should have said something. I should have had, some type of, motherly instinct to get, to say, no, you can't have her. So she described.
How come she didn't babysit her if she was at home?
Well, she had to go to work as well.
Oh.
Yeah. So she told me that she was hungover, had been drinking the night before, was hungover, and she had a boy, and he would have been about 4 or 5, and she had a babysitter. And I never asked her why didn't Melissa go with the other, and I never really got there. But she said that when my mom had called and she said that this lady was going to come and pick up Melissa, that it was probably about 8 o'clock in the morning, and she had got up and had a hangover, and when she met the kidnapper was tall, was in like a white nurse's uniform with the and this is middle of August, the end of August, with the white gloves on, the dark shade sunglasses, with the scarf around the neck, with the bonnet, with the scarf around the neck, around the head, the ears and everything. And it was just odd. Yeah, it was just odd. Had the white shoes and right.
So she had a nursing uniform on.
Yes, that's what Carol had said. And so
and
it
a
is
loose
very
muffler
interesting
on her car. So her car makes noise. She said there was a loose muffler on her car. So
yes.
She didn't happen to see what kind of car or what color?
Yeah, it was like she said it was like a 67 a Lincoln Road. I have it in my notes. I should have memorized that. She did say what kind of car it was, and we have that in our file. And I can't remember what it was. I guess I should have been better prepared to get that.
Lincoln.
Yes.
And a nurse's uniform. Just writing that down because I will do a video about this case after. My YouTube reaches a lot more people.
Okay.
Sure. And what I can do for you is I have a friend with another podcast that I was actually on called Deep Dark Truth. Her name is Mo. And I can put you in contact with her.
Okay.
If you friend me, because you don't have a friend button, I can put you in contact with her. I'll send her a message because Deep Dark Truth has hundreds of thousands of followers.
Okay.
If anybody can get this out there to a huge audience, it's definitely them.
Okay. That would be great.
Definitely.
Yep.
Yeah.
She said when the lady came in, that, Melissa was still in a diaper and that's it. And she's like, and she had like, chocolate on her face and was kind of dirty around her chest area, and she's like, okay, yeah, just to being a baby.
She was almost
Yeah, right. She's a 2-year-old baby, a dirty baby with diaper, and it's just she had to change the diaper and just clean her up. And she's like, "You're welcome to come in." And she's like, the lady was following her around the apartment, and she said it was really weird. It was a weird
creepy.
vibe. It's creepy, yeah, it is.
Yeah. Well,
And
I
so
saw
she's
the
like,
sketch of the lady.
right.
And even the sketch. I don't know if you've ever seen the British show Mrs. Brown's Boys, where Mrs. Brown is actually a guy, but that's what it reminded me of.
Right. Yep. Yep. So we were told by the roommate that the roommate said, "Oh, you don't have to change your clothes. It's okay. I have clothes at home." And she's like, "I'm going to put clothes on her. I'm going to give her no, it's just pretty important." And she's like, it was just odd that she was trying to rush her to get the baby. And she said that, "Oh, your 4-year-old, if I could take him too, and he'd be so great, be at my house. We have lots of kids." And she's like, No, I have a babysitter. Don't worry about it. And she insisted. She's like, "Well, Melissa would be comfortable with him around, and it'd be okay." And she's like, No, thank you. It's okay. I have a babysitter."
How come they didn't just ask her baby? Well, you said you don't know why they didn't ask her babysitter to just watch both kids.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe, and it could be that there was no room. They didn't want to take on another kid. I don't know. I never really asked. I guess that's kind of an important question. But
this is sounding more and more like a Georgia Tan type situation, isn't it? Like a baby broker.
Yep, exactly. And so,
then like your mother, who was young, single mother at the time,
she was 20 years old.
Target. Yeah.
Right. Well, so we never knew that. I'm sorry?
They were the targets they looked for. That's all I was going to say.
Yeah. We never knew that prior to meeting Carol, my wife and I met Carol, we never knew that my mom had put up flyers in the apartment complex. We always knew he was on, through the Star Telegram. But we never knew on the apartment. And so, Carol said that after the lady left, that she heard her trying to crank up the car, it wouldn't start. And, she remembers just something when she lay down, she couldn't go back to sleep because it was just a weird situation. She said she got up and seen that the car wouldn't start, and she was about to go down, and then it started and she took off. And she said she just never had peace about it. She always felt it was really weird. And the only, composite we have is from what the roommate had said, what he had given. Mm. And so we've lived with that our whole life. Well, when I got photos of this guy that we had been investigating, I did a side-by-side photo of him when he was in his 20s next to the composite, and a cold chill went down my spine, and the hair on the back of my neck stood up because it was spot on with the eyes, the cheekbones, the nose, the mouth was just identical. And it almost it stopped me in my tracks, and I almost had a small panic attack because it was so spot on. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. I mean, it was scary. It was kind of scary. And I sent it to my wife, and she's like, "Oh my God, this is crazy." Well, we've been sitting on that for 4 or 5 months, and we didn't really know how to approach it. Finally, I decided to call the FBI, and I left a voicemail at the FBI, and it was on the phone for waiting. And finally, I got passed through two different phone numbers, and then I left a voicemail. And about a week later, I got a call from the FBI agent, and we talked on the phone for about 45 minutes. And I kind of gave him all the facts from what we found out about this guy and about what we know. And he said, okay. He said, we'll be in touch, and we'll we'll see what happens. We never heard back from him. I still haven't heard back from him.
Oh,
However,
shame.
he contacted the Fort Worth Police Department. The Fort Worth Police Department called me. This is probably about 4 months ago. They called me, and they wanted to hear what I had to say and what we had found. And I said, look, and at the end of this interview, like after we had done I explained everything to him. I said, look, I know I don't have any concrete proof. I don't have any evidence. I don't have any facts to back up my speculations. And I said, I'm hoping for anything. And he said, well, you have enough to what we think is probable cause to look. He said, no, I don't have any facts or evidence. He said, but what you're telling me, everything you're telling me raises an eyebrow. And so, they couldn't confirm or deny that they opened the investigation. However, they came and got my mother's and father's name. My father's in Chicago and my mother's down here. She lives with us. And they came and got both of their DNA. And they
She
said
lives with you.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah. My wife and I had her move in with us. But
So was her second husband passed on?
No, she reunited with my dad after this was taken. And, I'm sorry. Her second husband, they got a divorce. I'm sorry.
Oh.
Yeah, her second husband got a divorce, and they've been divorced quite a few years now. And so he just lives with us. We think that the Fort Worth Police Department reopened the investigation. Now,
well, I know they reopened it in 2005. Supposedly after a tip was called into the news station. Do you know what that was?
We don't know. We do now. Yes. In fact, we didn't know back then because we never got to meet the lady, the cousin. Yeah. She was a lady that called in 2005 because she said, "I'm convinced this my cousin is this person's family member." And she called everybody in the Fort Police and called everybody, and they reopened it, and nothing really came out of it.
It should have been closed in the first place. This is a missing baby who likely is alive somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. She should be 52. This November, it should be 52, or 53, I think. Yeah, and so...
well, I'm 47. That would make me a year older than the next sister after her. Right.
Yeah, so Becky, I think, was born in 75, if I'm not mistaken.
I thought she was born in 74, but you would know better than I would, so.
No, you're probably right. It's probably 74, and then back to Vicky is 75, and Sharon's 78. Yes, that's probably right. But,
yeah, I thought she was the same age as me.
Okay, yep. It's actually a show on September 9th, 10th, birthday. Will be Becky's birthday. So she'll be 47,
Mine
I
was
think?
August 4th. Yep.
Oh, wow, okay.
Mine was August 4th.
Okay, wow. Well, happy belated birthday.
Yeah, and I hope that you will definitely download your DNA raw data and upload it to those places.
Yes, yeah. We're my wife and I are going to do that. Yep.
All you have to do is hit settings under DNA, and I implore everybody listening to do that, especially GEDmatch, because that's the one the police use.
Okay.
I just think it's so important. We did it, and as I told you in Messenger, we found my mother's father. She'd always been told someone was her father. And when we did the DNA testing, at first we're like, well, this last name was her great-grandmother's maiden name, so we didn't think anything of it. Then we looked at the number of markers of CMs, and we're like,
wow.
Well, that's not to do with her great-grand... Well, it turns out that it was technically the same family, because my grandmother and my mother's father were actually 8 cousins, as if that matters.
Wow.
But that's why the last name was the same.
Okay.
That's why the last name was my mother's great-grandmother's last name, which
is
what had her confused
when
she first saw the match. She was like, what the... And then we saw pictures of her sisters. You would have sworn that her sister Josephine was my mother in her teenage picture.
Okay.
So
yeah,
that's why
so
I asked you about your sister, because
right.
that match was absolutely crazy. We had goosebumps.
Okay. Yep. Well, I am a praying man, and I think it might have been in January. I was in prayer one day, and my whole life, our entire life, I've always prayed, God, please bring her back into my family and restore our family back together, Lord. I know that she's alive. Please bring her back into our family. And I've just prayed that. And I remember in prayer one day, it was right before my birthday. And my birthday is January 28th. I remember it was before then. I was in prayer and I felt God tell me, look, I know that she's alive. I know the hairs that are on her head. And I need you to stop begging me because my children don't beg. And he said, I need you to start thanking me for finding her because I know where she's at this very moment. And I said, okay.
That he does.
And yes, he does. And from that moment on, I said, okay, God, I'm just going to praise you because I know you're going to bring her back. I believe in God, and I believe when God speaks to your heart that he will fulfill what he says. And if God says he's going to bring her back into our family, I believe that.
Yeah, and that's what my mother said too. She said, God led me led me to find Jeff's page so that you could help them.
Oh, I believe that. That's so awesome. I really believe that.
That's just what she told me. Did you say you were born January 28th, 1980?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
One of my best friends was born January 29th of 1980.
Oh, wow.
When you said that, I was like, wait a minute, that's maybe.
Wait a second here.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Yep. My wife and I have both been feeling within the last couple of months. We've been, we felt something's about to break. We just feel it in our gut. We feel like we're just on the verge of a breakthrough, and we're going to find her. I can't explain it. I mean, you probably can understand that with your family. I mean, you probably felt it before you guys finally found your mother's father.
Yeah, I mean, we had no idea because she had been told this other guy from this well-to-do family was her father because the guy's mother had paid my grandmother to go away because she thought my mother was. Wow. And of course, back in the 50s, to have a child out of wedlock, especially if.
Right, that was a big difference.
So they would like to keep it quiet, especially if the suspected grandmother is the first cousin of L.L. Bean,
Wow, yep, you got to keep that quiet.
Yeah, that's why she paid.
Definitely.
She paid another mother to go away, too.
Oh, that's sad.
But it turns out that wasn't my mother's father.
Wow.
But we were thrilled. Even though he had already passed away, we were thrilled. I ended up with an uncle and 3 more aunts. So.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
It is. And I want other people to feel that joy.
Right. Yeah, we feel like that, she's alive and probably has children of her own, has grandchildren, and when we do meet, because I know we're going to finally meet her, it's just going to be such a shock because she was probably loved and probably had a beautiful family, and her parents probably really loved her. And her whole life is going to be a lie. Yep. And so it's going to be
My
tough.
mother said that too. She said she probably grew up in a loving family.
Yep,
and
probably.
It's going to upend her a little bit when she finds out.
Yep.
But DNA has a way of telling the truth.
Yeah. Yeah. We talked to when the detective talked to me, he said that they were very interested in the case, in that they were looking into it again. And I said, are you guys reopening the case? He was like, well, I can't confirm or deny that. He said, but we're very interested in what's going on and what you had to tell us and all these facts that you're giving us. He said, but what I can tell you is whenever we do the DNA test with your parents, and now we had DNA on file with the National Exploited Missing Children, and so their DNA was on file already. And I explained that to the detective, and he said, well, he said, well, we're using a federal system where if her or any of her offspring have ever, been, had to apply for any type of federal anything with DNA, it's going to immediately pull up right away, like immediately right now. He said it's not just the state of Texas, it's all across.
Right?
Yes.
That's CODIS, right? Yeah.
Yep. And so they said it'll be a national database where your DNA will pop up immediately if there's anything. And so that's great. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And
it
so
is.
we really think we're right there on the verge of just finding Melissa and bringing her home. And I've dreamt about it my whole life. I've had visions of it and of us meeting together and prayer and believing. And I don't believe that it's all for nothing. I think it's really going to happen. I really believe it's going to happen.
Yeah, listening to you talk about dreaming about it and stuff made me think of something from my own life. Your case, I can relate to in a way because I have known all my life, just like you've known all your life, that you have a sister. I've known that all my life, too. I have a half-sister. I've never met her.
Oh, wow. Wow.
I used to sit in the car as a kid on our rides and just daydream about meeting her because I was an only child.
Okay. Yep.
So I get it.
Yep. Yeah. There's a missing part. It's not whole yet. And it's not complete. And
right.
So,
my father passed away, and he was married for a very short time before he was married to my mother for 45 years.
Wow.
And
wow.
they had a daughter, and he couldn't take care of her, and they wouldn't have let him anyway in the 60s. So, he's passed on now, and I just feel like, and I've had so many health problems, I just feel like one of the things that she needs to know is her medical history. So.
Yes. Wow. Well, we're going to pray that you. My family will be praying that you get that restoration in your family as well, so you can find her.
He never wanted to be rejected, so he didn't go looking. But he said, I would never reject her. She came to my door, I would hug her. And my mother said, you know what? She'd be another daughter to me.
Right. Wow. That's amazing.
So that was never an issue. I was told my whole life. It wasn't kept from me. So I think that's important, too, not to keep as much pain as I know it causes your mother. I almost cried listening to her crying in that interview, talking about what a terrible mother she was. She wasn't a terrible mother. It was a different time period.
Yep, she was a kid.
It was a different time period.
Yep, it's so true. Yeah,
you wouldn't put an ad in the paper probably. Although I say that, but people get babysitters off the internet, for gosh sake.
Oh no! Oh no! Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had lost.
No.
we lost Levi for about 7 minutes in a Walmart, and my wife and I just almost had a panic attack and were screaming at the top of my lungs, locked down the store. I'm running around like a madman, locked down the store, towed at him. Levi.
I like that.
Yeah. Yep. He was hiding.
Your only child?
No, I have an 18-year-old with a previous relationship. He's in Michigan.
Oh.
That's Nathaniel, and they're both great kids. I mean, he's a good kid. And but after Levi was 2, we said, I think we're done. I think we're done.
Yeah. Well, I heard Levi talking earlier, and then I heard the dog talking.
Yeah, right. Yep.
If you have any information about this case, or even think you may be Melissa, you can call the Fort Worth Police Department at 1-817-335-4222. That's 1-817-335-4222. Is that still the correct number?
Yes, ma'am. Yep.
Or NCMEC, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, at 1-800-THE-LOST. 1-800-THE-LOST.
Yep. I guess one thing I would want to say is if Melissa would have had a cherry, a birthmark on the back of the neck, size of a cherry, and so more than likely she would have hips and thighs like my mom and sisters, and yep, they're just that's the way they're built, and so if that kind of describes who you might think, or please go on our Facebook page, help find Melissa Highsmith, and like our page, share her photos.
Diane, sorry about that.
No, that's quite okay.
My mother's kind of an invalid, so the house phone was ringing, so I had to.
Oh, no worries.
PCA, so I'm sorry.
No problem at all. Help find Melissa Highsmith on Facebook. Please like our page.
Yes.
Share with your friends.
I will post the link to that in the description to the show.
Thank you so much.
I just have to go on and download the show.
And may the Lord bless you. And
yes, and I will get you in touch with Mo.
Okay.
Your phone number will come up on my Google, even though my Google number comes up when you call me. Do you want me to give her that?
Sure. Yep. That's not a problem.
Okay.
Yep. She can reach me anytime.
She's a sweet girl. Yeah,
okay.
She did The Boy in the Box with Jim
okay.
Hoffman and I.
Okay. All right. Yeah, and I'll go ahead and
we've been working very hard on that case. So.
Right. Okay.
But yeah, I will give her that number, and I will message you with the link so that you can put it on the group. I put the poster in the group, by the way.
Okay. Yes.
So
yes, thank you.
I'm glad you liked it.
Yes,
I'm glad you liked it. I make those for every case that I do. And matter of fact, tonight I have to write all my videos for September. I do them Monday and Wednesday usually. This week I pushed the Wednesday back to Thursday so I could do this. Excuse me. And I write them once a month, and I make all the posters.
Wow.
That I put up next to me when I do the videos. I'll send you a link to the YouTube.
Okay, awesome.
But I started doing this because of a little girl that disappeared when I was a little girl. Because it kind of, I was 11, she was 9. She was from only 40 miles away. And that's scary when you're a little kid and you think, well, I live in the woods. What could happen to me? Oh, you know?
Wow.
So, and I never forgot Sarah, and she was the reason I started doing all of this.
You're doing the Lord's work, I tell you. I really believe that.
Everybody tells me that, and I fervently believe in him, so couldn't do it without him.
Right, absolutely.
So, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
And thanks everybody that is listening or will listen, because I have to upload it.
Yeah.
I'm so used to when I did Blog Talk, it was live. But this is
okay. Yep.
But it's a much wider range because it's on Spotify and it's on Apple Podcasts. And
nice.
And actually, it was Mo that got me over on Anchor.
Oh, very cool. Okay.
So.
Okay.
I was thrilled by that, by her help and her encouragement. And again, I will put a link to the Facebook group in the description of the show. You've been amazing. You've done exactly what I like people to do, which is the family talks. The family tells about the victim, makes the victim a real person. Talking about her covered in chocolate and stuff. It makes her a real person.
Yep, right. Yep.
And I like that. I want, just like when I do genealogy, I want to find personal stories about the people to make them real. Same thing applies with this.
Right, exactly.
You want them to be real people.
Yes, ma'am.
More people will be interested if they're a real person.
Right, exactly. I believe that. Yep.
Excuse me. But again, thank you for joining me.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you all for listening. God bless you. Have a great evening, everyone, and you, of course.
All right. I
And,
appreciate it. Thank you so much, ma'am.
You're very welcome.
All right.
I feel so
All right,
old. Call me ma'am.
All right. Bye-bye. Yes, ma'am. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.